Randstad India Talent Pod, leading the human forward way.
A big hello to everyone listening in. I'm your host Neerja and this is the Randstad India Talent Pod. Welcome to the first ever edition of the Randstad India Talent Pod, an exciting new world where we use the wonderful medium of audio to connect with all you lovely folks. From exciting updates to engaging and important conversations from the world of recruitment, hiring and placements, the Randstad India Talent Pod is the place you need to be to stay caught up.
You're tuned in to the Randstad India Talent Pod. All things Randstad in one place.
Are you ready for some quick tips? In today's competitive landscape of careers, there's a tough fight for every vacancy. Since coveted jobs are few and far in between, it's become imperative to get noticed by employers fast. Employability has become more demanding than ever, encompassing not just skills, but also behavior, attitude, and aptitude. Here's how you can improve your employability quotient by being a better version of yourself as a person, a team player, and a leader. Number 1, be up to date with your communication skills in terms of going online, over the phone, face-to-face, writing mails, online chats, etc. Number 2, emphasize your soft skills. Skills like teamwork and time management are becoming more critical than ever. Number 3, leverage your network of connections. When you have a robust network of professional contacts and connections, only then will you be able to attract top employers and desired jobs. Number 4, be a social media butterfly. Get yourself out there. From listing your qualifications, getting your skills validated, getting recommended by your connections, to ultimately demonstrating how you handle different situations, you can do a lot across these platforms. And finally, number 5, adjust your CV to the job description. Let employers know what they want and need to know about you and how you can help the organization attain its goals. Speaking of CVs and resumes, stay tuned for our next episode where we bring you some quick tips on how to improve your resume and ensure you land your dream job. Until then, good luck on your job hunt.
You're listening to the Randstad India Talent Pod, where fun meets work.
Well, today I'm catching up with the very special Chief Marketing Officer of Randstad India, Bhuvana Subramanyan. Here's a quick little something about Bhuvana. She has over 25 years of experience in marketing, communications, corporate social responsibility, product and sales, and she's so skilled at what she does that she's won awards for it. Bhuvana, so glad that you're on today and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Neerja. It's absolutely my pleasure to be part of this.
Now, today we're going to be discussing the theme of the art of effective communication, something you are more than proficient in. To start us off, do you think you can give us 3 tips that we can all use when it comes to effective communication?
Absolutely. Being able to communicate, as we all know, is clearly one of the top skills across levels and roles, right? Conveying accurate information through verbal, non-verbal and written communication is a skill sought after in just about every industry. I think I've had about at least 7 or 8 jobs in my career. Every interview had this question on communication, or do you have communication skills? And that's one of the first things that everybody looks for in the resume as well. Showing that you know how to communicate with all the elements of your audience will help you stand out from other applicants. So that's clearly one of the key things that you need to imbibe. And even after you get a job, it also makes you a better employee once you've landed the job as well. To answer your question, Neerja, there are many do's and don'ts in communication, but let's focus on 3 things. It's the softer aspects, actually. You need to value the person, the audience you're speaking to. You need to be focused on the conversation itself, doing something else while you're talking, just texting or writing an email, looking elsewhere or looking away from the person sends the message that you don't value the other person. And that's the worst thing you can do in a communication.
Absolutely.
This applies to when you're speaking to them or when they're speaking to you as well. It goes both ways. So my suggestion is eliminate distractions. I always tell people phones down, whether it is communication in the office or at home as well. I always tell, put the phone down, look at the person, right? That keeps your distraction away. The second thing is learn to read the listener, which means make eye contact with the listener. Pause when you're speaking to know the level of interest. Sometimes I've seen people just doing a monologue, talking continuously, not understanding whether the other person is interested in what they're saying or not. And you can gauge this level of interest by asking questions that may pick the interest of the listener. You could also pick up on non-verbal cues that shows the other person seems inattentive, closed off, or is uncomfortable. Sometimes some topics are uncomfortable to the other person. It could be politics, it could be gender related, or it could be even subject related, but may not make the person feel comfortable. So if you get those verbal cues, just stop, right? And ask them what they're interested in and see if you're able to change the narrative, you're able to change the verbiage or even the topic itself. Sometimes it's also because the other person doesn't have the time and they may be looking at their watch, they may be looking at their phone. Those are your cues to check with them if they are okay on time, and if they're not, then reschedule. So that's what reading the listener means. And the third thing which goes for communication and beyond communication is being self-aware. And the best communicators are the ones that are aware of their own contributions to the conversation and know how best to help the flow of dialogue. Sometimes you're just thinking that you're contributing to the communication or to the topic, but you may not really be doing so because you may not have the complete context, or you may not be the person that they are looking for a contribution from also, right? It could be either or. Communication is not just about speaking, it's also about active listening. And the most important thing which I've realized in communication is keep it authentic. Speak what is really necessary for the situation, and that's what makes great communication. Great communicators will know when a contribution is needed, when it's best to let others take the floor. In an organization especially, you may not necessarily be the expert on everything. Your team member may be the expert, or it could be somebody from another team as well. So it's okay for you to give the segue to the other person and tell them, why don't you contribute to this topic?
Wow, those are some fantastic tips, Bhuvana. To sum up, eliminate distractions, read the listener, and be self-aware. And I think that's important, not just in official, professional, corporate communication, but also, in your own personal life. So great tips there. And I do want to, move on to discussing something that you can't compromise on as a communicator, as a follow-up to your tips.
Absolutely. I mean, as we know, nature communication is a bridge between confusion and clarity. Right?
A bridge between confusion and clarity. Absolutely.
That's the adage I love the most. First impressions, and I'm speaking, from a candidate perspective or the interviewer perspective also. Doesn't matter. First impressions are important. So when you're at an interview or when you're speaking to the person for the first time, first of all, go prepared, right? Speak with confidence. Consider questions and answer carefully. Take your time to form the answers and then speak. In fact, I tell my son, think before you start speaking. Take that extra 10 to 20 seconds. That's all it takes before you start forming the sentence and say something that is relevant. That's better. And as I mentioned earlier, look for eye contact and expressions as well. And today in a virtual world, that's all you get. All of us are in a box. All of us are on video, right? So look for eye contact and expressions, and you will know whether you're actually communicating effectively. Articulate carefully, right? Speak as clearly as you can and keep the tone positive and upbeat, because that changes the way the person is perceiving you and is also paying attention, and whether the communication is actually very effective. And the other trick that I have seen is ask questions back to check if your communication is clear on the purpose of the message. You can ask leading questions like, did that make sense to you? Is this what you really wanted to know? Did I answer your questions? Some leading questions like this will help answer whether your communication has been effective. And if the receiver finds the message personable, warm, empathetic, and is responding verbally and visually, then actually clicked. And also, if the interviewer is reciprocating the tone, then the communication is effective. If they're also showing enthusiasm, then it's effective. Obviously, effective communication is essential to professional success, and employers often ask communication interview questions, like I was mentioning earlier, to understand how candidates communicate with others under a multitude of situations. So they may not ask you direct questions. They'll give you a situation and then ask you to answer, how will you communicate this to your team, or how will you communicate this to your manager? So exhibiting that skill also assures potential employers that you are a viable candidate for the position. I think Peter Drucker said this very well. Nature is the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said, right? So I think that's the most effective way of communicating.
More than read between the lines, I think it's also hearing between the lines in this case. Bhuvana, thank you so much. You've really given us a wonderful insight into effectively communicating with another person. I want to wrap up by asking you to leave your listeners with one piece of advice or one, insight that you think will always come in handy when it comes to communication.
I would say listen, right? Think and deliberate before you speak.
Great way to sum up this conversation. It's been lovely speaking with you. It's a true mark of a great communicator that I want to keep speaking to you, but unfortunately, we don't have that kind of time. But thank you for joining me, Bhuvana.
My pleasure, Neerja, and thank you for having me here. Bye.
You're listening to the Randstad India Talent Pod, where fun meets work.
Well, it's been an absolutely wonderful time here on the first ever episode of the Randstad India Talent Pod. We will be back with more, and we'd love to hear from you. What do you guys think of the podcast? What would you like for us to cover going forward? You can share your suggestions and recommendations with us. You can also post on social media by tagging at Randstad India on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram with the hashtag Randstad India Talent Pod.
This is the Randstad India Talent Pod, leading the human forward way.